I met Mia at a cancer research fundraiser in downtown Indianapolis, the kind of event where people wear shiny shoes and drink wine with names I couldn't pronounce. I wasn't planning to stay long. I had written a decent-sized check from my trucking company, mostly to support a buddy's sister who was battling leukemia, and I figured I'd show my face, shake a few hands, and get out. But then she stepped up to the podium. Mia, blonde hair pinned back in a twist, red lipstick, black dress, poised like a damn CEO. She wasn't just beautiful, she knew it. And somehow, she made the room know it too. I couldn't take my eyes off her. She talked about how funding helped families, how research gave hope, and how every donor in that room could change lives. And the way she looked right at people, like she was pulling every dollar straight out of their souls. I introduced myself after her speech. Jack Donovan, I said, shaking her hand. Trucking logistics. I dropped off a check earlier. I was wearing my best boots, cleaned off the dirt but still scuffed, and a button-up shirt I had ironed that morning. I knew I looked like a guy who spent his days on the road. But she smiled politely anyway. Mia Bell, she said. I handle PR for the foundation. That's how it started. A quick introduction, followed by a drink, then a conversation that stretched into closing time. She asked about my business, and I told her how I started with one beat-up rig I drove myself, and how now I had 6 trucks running routes across the Midwest. She listened, nodded, even laughed a little when I told her about the time I hauled 35 toilets to a home show in Columbus and half of them tipped over. After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I sent flowers. She texted back. Our first date was dinner in Carmel. I picked a steakhouse I couldn't pronounce because she looked like the kind of woman who ordered wine by region. And from there, it just happened. I fell, fast and hard. And once I did, I made sure she knew how serious I was. I bought her a Louis Vuitton tote after her first promotion. Flew us to Miami for a long weekend when she hit her quarterly PR goals. If her car needed new tires, I handled it. If she mentioned something stressful at work, I'd order delivery and show up with wine. That first year, everything felt perfect. We laughed. We traveled. We made plans. She'd kiss me on the cheek and call me her rock. I believed her. I wanted to. But even then, even in the middle of the dream, I noticed little things. How she never really asked about my drivers or how I was scaling the business. How she'd nod when I told her about new contracts, but never follow up. How she changed the subject when I got into the weeds of supply chain issues. I told myself it didn't matter. She had her world. I had mine. And love was supposed to bridge that gap, right? So I kept buying, kept showing up, kept loving her the only way I knew how, with everything I had. Even if something deep down was starting to whisper that maybe, just maybe, I didn't fit into the world she was building. Mia's world kept rising, and I kept footing the climb. Her promotions came fast, one after another, like clockwork. First as senior PR associate, then account lead, then media strategy director. Every step up meant nicer clothes, higher stakes meetings, bigger impressions to make. I was proud of her. I really was. But pride has a funny way of turning into something else when you're always on the outside looking in. Babe, I need something sharp for that gallon next week, she said one night, scrolling through her phone while I was trying to figure out invoices in the living room. Gala? I asked, glancing over. She didn't look up. The one for the Ad Tech Awards. I told you about it. It's kind of a big deal. Everyone from the agency will be there. Want me to go with you? I asked. She paused, just for a second, then smiled, the kind of tight smile I'd started to recognize. It's mostly just clients and executives. You'd be bored out of your mind. I try not to take it personally. I told myself she was right. Those rooms were filled with people who talked about brand expansion and investor metrics. I talked about fuel surcharges and driver shortages. Maybe it made sense to keep those worlds separate. Maybe. Still, it didn't stop me from dropping $2,000 on a designer clutch she'd mentioned in passing. For the gala, I said, placing it in her hands the day before. She kissed my cheek and said thank you. That was all. Then she tossed the box on the couch and got back to her emails. It happened again and again. Launch parties, team dinners, holiday galas. There was always a reason I didn't belong. It's just work people, she'd say. You wouldn't have fun. Or worse, they wouldn't get your vibe. She never said it outright, but I felt it in her voice. I was her safe space, her provider, her cheerleader, but I wasn't her equal. Not in the world she cared about most. One night after she'd left for a strategy dinner, I stared at the spreadsheet on my laptop. Freight load numbers, cost per mile breakdowns. I was managing 6 rigs and negotiating with vendors across 3 states. That wasn't nothing. I'd built this with my own 2 hands. So why did I feel like I was still standing in the corner of her life? Still, I kept going, kept smiling, kept buying. Because love, real love, was about support. And I thought, if I just gave a little more, proved myself a little harder, maybe one day, she'd stop hiding me behind the curtains. When Mia called to tell me she'd been promoted to senior director, I was actually out on a job, sitting in the cab of my truck just outside a fulfillment center in Cincinnati. She was breathless with excitement. They finally did it, babe. Senior Director of Brand Communications. I smiled, genuinely happy for her. That's amazing, Mia. You earned it. There's a dinner next week at Smith and Lewinsky to celebrate. Execs, board members, key clients, all the heavy hitters. It's huge. I let the silence hang for a beat, then asked, not really expecting a different answer, should I come? She hesitated. Well, it's really just for internal leadership and their spouses. Like, executive spouses, you know? I knew what that meant. She didn't have to spell it out. I wasn't executive material. Not in her eyes. Right? I said, trying to keep my voice light. Wouldn't want to cramp your style. She laughed a little, like it was nothing. You get it. Besides, I'll tell everyone you're out of town on business. That stung more than I let on. Because I wasn't out of town. I wasn't hiding. I was working my ass off every day to keep my company running, to keep showing up for her. And yet, in the version of her life she presented to the world, I was an invisible line on the resume she didn't share. That night, she came home late and went straight to the bathroom to take off her makeup. I sat on the bed scrolling through invoices, but my mind wasn't on freight schedules. That's when I heard her on the phone. I hadn't meant to listen in, but the bathroom door was cracked open, and her voice carried. No, I didn't invite him, she said, laughing softly. Come on, he owns trucks for a living. It's not exactly the crowd for diesel and denim. There was a pause, and then she added, quieter, he's sweet. Loyal. He just doesn't belong in that room. My stomach dropped. I stared at the spreadsheet in front of me, but the numbers blurred. I sat there for a long time, until I heard her close the door and head to the kitchen. That was the moment something shifted in me. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was something colder. Clearer. I needed to see it for myself. How she acted in that world she was so protective of. How she talked. How she moved when she thought I wasn't around. So I made a decision. I was going to that dinner. Not to make a scene. Not to sabotage anything. Just to watch. I called in a favor from my buddy Nate, who used to do private security at corporate events. He got me a name on the door, just in case they checked. Then I found a suit that still fit, cleaned my boots till they shined, and planned my entrance. I didn't feel nervous. I felt something else entirely. A need to know where I really stood in the world Mia had built without me. The restaurant was one of those upscale steakhouses with gold-rimmed menus and waiters in tailored vests. Smith and Lewinsky. I'd passed it a dozen times, but never stepped foot inside. Too polished. Too clean. Too not for me. But tonight, I walked through those glass doors like I belonged. Nobody questioned me. I'd put on a charcoal suit, clean white shirt, boots shined to a mirror finish. I even left my ball cap in the truck. They asked for my name at the front, and when I gave them Nate's contact, they nodded and waved me in. The place was humming with laughter, clinking glasses, and the soft murmur of corporate success. I spotted Mia before I was 10 steps in. She stood near the center of the room, her back to me, holding a wine glass and laughing at something a man in a navy blazer said. She looked radiant, confident, comfortable. I moved to the bar and ordered a club soda, then found a spot where I could watch without being seen. From there, I took it all in. Mia, gliding from group to group, all charm and ease. She touched arms, tossed her head back when she laughed, made people lean in like she was the sun in that orbit. I knew that version of her. I'd seen glimpses. But here, she was at full volume. Then something odd happened. One of her colleagues, a tall woman in a green silk dress, noticed me watching. She smiled politely, then walked over. You here with the Anderson group? She asked. I nodded. Just dropping in. Know Mia Bell, I said, keeping my tone casual. Oh, Mia's great. Let me grab her. Before I could stop her, she turned back toward the crowd and waved Mia over. Mia froze when she saw me, just for a moment, like she couldn't quite process why I was there. Then she plastered on a smile and walked over, heels clicking on the polished floor. Jack, she said, voice bright but brittle. What a surprise. I kept my hands in my pockets. Thought I'd stop by, offer congratulations in person. Her eyes darted to her co-workers behind her. The woman in green was still watching, curious. Oh, this is Jack, Mia said, turning slightly. He's my driver. The words hit like a punch. My driver. There it was. I didn't flinch. Didn't say a word. Just looked at her, right in the eyes. She didn't hold the stare for long. The woman in green smiled politely and walked away, probably assuming I was a hired hand. Mia leaned in, her voice low and urgent. What are you doing here? I took a breath. Watching. She didn't know what to say to that. I could see her grasping for some explanation that would fix it, soften it, spin it. But nothing came. I set my glass on the bar and stepped back. I won't stay. Don't worry. Just needed to see it for myself. Then I turned and walked out, past the velvet curtains, out into the cold night. My chest ached, but not from heartbreak. From clarity. She wasn't just ashamed of me. She wanted me out of sight, out of the story. And now, I finally understood exactly where I stood. The next morning, I packed up every piece of Mia's life that was tangled with mine. Every streaming service, every food delivery account, every damn credit card she used, just until payday. Cancelled. I shut down the joint checking account we barely used, except when she needed something I was dumb enough to cover. The Amex she liked to swipe for client dinners. Gone. I left her a single text. All yours now. Good luck. Then I tossed my overnight bag in the truck and drove straight to Steve's. Steve was my oldest friend. We used to haul cross-country together back in the early days, before he left the road to run his own mechanic shop down in Mooresville. He opened the door in gym shorts and a Colts hoodie, took one look at my face, and just said, "Spare room's open." I didn't even have to ask. The next few days were a strange kind of quiet. No Mia, no texts, no dinner reservations or gift deliveries to chase down. Just long hours at Steve's place, and even longer shifts managing my routes and drivers. And honestly, it felt good. I didn't realize how heavy everything had gotten until it was gone. But Mia? She didn't stay silent for long. The first message came that night. "Mia, can we talk?" Ignored. Then a voicemail. "Jack, I didn't mean to say it like that. You caught me off guard. Please call me." Then another. And another. By the end of the week, I had over 20 unread texts and 8 voicemails. She went from apologetic to defensive to full-blown dramatic. "You're overreacting." It wasn't what it sounded like. "I was trying to protect you." Protect me? I almost laughed out loud when I read that one. Steve walked into the kitchen while I was staring at my phone, still deciding whether to block her. "That her?" he asked. I nodded. He poured a cup of coffee and leaned on the counter. "You know she's only sorry 'cause the safety net walked out, right?" I looked up. "You always talked about how she never understood your business. Never cared to. That ain't love, man. That's convenience. Big difference." He wasn't wrong. I put the phone down and turned it off. Instead, I started focusing on what mattered. Hired 2 new drivers. Closed a deal with a local warehouse that doubled our weekly loads. Had lunch with a few clients in Bloomington. No pretense, just work and respect. And for the first time in a long time, I felt steady. I felt like myself. Mia kept reaching out for a while. Then, slowly, the messages stopped. She must have realized the Jack she knew, the one who paid, chased, and stayed quiet, wasn't coming back. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. Because when someone shows you exactly what they think of you, you'd be a fool not to believe them. We met at a coffee shop on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Neutral ground. Public enough to keep things civil. I picked the place, an old converted train station with creaky floors and mismatched tables. Mia walked in like she was allergic to it, her umbrella dripping and her heels clicking sharp on the worn wood. She spotted me in the back corner and gave a small wave, like we were still on speaking terms. Like I hadn't ignored her for 2 weeks. "Thanks for coming," she said, setting her purse down and sitting across from me. I nodded once. Said nothing. She ordered a tea. I already had my black coffee. We sat in silence for a few seconds too long. She started, her voice softer than usual. I wanted to explain. I looked at her. Really looked. Hair perfect, makeup subtle, blazer crisp. She was still the same Mia, polished to the point of being untouchable. But I wasn't the same Jack. "Go ahead," I said flatly. She blinked, surprised by my tone. Then she sighed. "The dinner, that night. I panicked. You weren't supposed to be there, and I didn't know what to say. I was trying to keep things professional. By calling me your driver?" She flinched. "I didn't mean it like that." I raised an eyebrow. "Then how did you mean it?" Her jaw clenched slightly. "I don't know, okay? I was under pressure. My colleagues, they come from a different world." I leaned back in my chair. "You mean one I don't belong in?" She opened her mouth. Closed it. Tried again. "It's not that I'm ashamed of you, Jack. It's just, you don't understand how things are in my industry. Everyone's watching, judging. I've worked so hard to climb that ladder. I can't afford to look. Blue collar?" I asked. "Rough around the edges?" "Less than." Her silence was answer enough. I exhaled through my nose, fighting off the heat rising in my chest. "You know what's funny, Mia? I never needed you to parade me around like some trophy. I just wanted to be seen. Respected. You say you're under pressure, but what about me? I've built something real, from the ground up. I didn't inherit it, I didn't fake it, and I sure as hell didn't hide it." Her eyes welled up a little. "Jack, I do respect you." "No," I said calmly. "You liked what I gave you. The gifts. The security. The unconditional support. But respect? That would have meant letting me into your life. All of it. Not just the parts you thought I could pay for." She looked down at her tea, her hands shaking slightly. "I messed up." "Yeah," I said. "You did." We sat in silence again. Outside, the rain had slowed to a soft drizzle. She looked up at me one last time. "Is there any chance we can fix this?" I gave a small, tired smile. "Mia, I showed up for you every day. And the one time I showed up for myself, to see who you really were in that room, you called me your driver." I stood up and placed a few bucks on the table for my coffee. "I'm done fixing things that break because someone couldn't stand beside me." Her lip trembled, but I didn't wait for her reply. I walked out into the drizzle without an umbrella. It felt good, like washing off the last pieces of someone I thought I knew. She stayed in the cafe. I didn't look back. Because when respect is conditional, the relationship isn't broken, it's fake. And I was finally ready to live real. After Mia, things got real quiet. Not lonely, just quiet in a way that made me start hearing myself again. I moved back into my place full-time. Took down the framed photo of us on the pier in Chicago and tossed it in a drawer. Mia hadn't been back since our coffee shop goodbye, and honestly, I didn't expect her to. I'd left that door open for years, and all it got me was wind and dust. So I closed it for good. Instead, I threw myself into work. My trucking business had been steady, but now I wanted more. Bigger contracts, more rigs, better routes. I started bidding on national accounts, freight deals with companies I used to think were too big for a guy like me. Turns out, I was wrong. One of them, a major home improvement chain, was looking for a Midwest partner. I worked with my dispatcher to build a killer proposal, outline delivery flow, turnaround times, fuel efficiency. Everything I'd spent years fine-tuning while Mia's friends called me quaint or old school. 2 weeks later, we got the call. They picked us. A 6-figure annual deal, with the option to expand into a full logistics partnership by year 2. I was still in my office that night, looking over the signed contract, when Kate called. Kate was Mia's old friend from work. Not best friends or anything, but they'd done some projects together. I'd met her at a dinner once. She complimented my boots and asked more questions about trucking than Mia ever had. She called just to check in. Said she heard what happened. Said she thought Mia had been unfair. I kept it polite but short. Wasn't looking to rehash old wounds. A week later, she texted again. "Heard your company landed the Oak Ridge contract. That's huge. Drinks on you?" I almost didn't reply, but something in her message felt real. Not flirty, not forced, just curious, honest. We met at a dive bar in Greenwood. No pretense. She wore jeans and a hoodie. I showed up straight from the yard in my work boots and flannel. And we talked. Not about Mia. Not much, anyway. We talked about growing up middle class. About how she paid off her student loans waiting tables and still hated white wine with shrimp. About her dad, a retired warehouse foreman who always smelled like WD-40 and pipe tobacco. She got it. My world. She didn't flinch when I said things like deadhead mileage or axle weight limits. She asked real questions and actually listened. We saw each other again the next week. Then again. Then it just became a thing. Kate never asked what I could buy her. She cared more about how I treated the people who worked for me, how I talked about my drivers like brothers instead of employees. She asked about the time I took a load to Kansas in an ice storm and had to dig my way out with a plastic bin lid. She laughed at my stories. All of them. Not politely, but like she was really there. Mia texted once after that. "Heard about the new contract. Proud of you." I didn't reply. What was the point? By the end of summer, Kate and I were spending weekends together. She met Steve. Helped him organize a fundraiser for his mechanic apprentice who got injured. Everyone liked her immediately. One night, we sat on my porch eating barbecue, and she said, "You ever think maybe Mia was exactly what you needed? To figure out what you didn't want?" I nodded. "Yeah, and I'm grateful. Just not to her." We clinked beer bottles and watched the sun dip behind the trees. Turns out, when someone sees you for exactly who you are, no polish, no packaging, that's not settling. That's home error and message stream retry. The deal with the home improvement chain changed everything. More routes, more drivers. I bought 2 new rigs, hired a fleet manager, and signed a lease on a second office near Columbus. For the first time since I started this business in a rusted-out Peterbilt with a cracked windshield, I wasn't just getting by. I was building something real. Solid. Kate was there every step of the way, helping me sort through vendor bids when I needed a second set of eyes, keeping me grounded when my calendar got out of hand. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She didn't care about clout. She just believed in me. We celebrated the expansion deal one night in early fall, just the 2 of us at the house, a few beers and a grilled steak on the back porch. No fireworks. No flash. Just quiet, steady joy. I told her I was thinking about naming the new truck after her. She rolled her eyes and said, "Only if it's the good-looking one." Later that week, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer, figured it was spam or someone trying to sell me commercial insurance. But something told me to pick up. "Jack Donovan?" a voice said. Polished, clipped. Like someone who wore expensive shoes to places you didn't need shoes at all. This is Richard Cole, VP of Strategic Accounts at Sterling and Rowe. I paused. I recognized the name. Sterling and Rowe was the firm where Mia worked. Big PR outfit with a client list longer than my invoice backlog. I'm calling because I've been hearing your name a lot lately, he said. One of our logistics clients needs a ground carrier partner. Fast, efficient, regional coverage. Your operation came up multiple times. I was quiet for a second. Let him keep talking. I remember seeing you at our director dinner a while back, he added. You left early, I believe. I almost laughed. He didn't mention the part where Mia introduced me as her driver. Well, I said, what can I do for you, Mr. Cole? He laid it out. A potential contract. Steady work. National exposure. It was everything I'd once hoped Mia would be proud of. And now? It was mine, no strings attached. I appreciate the offer, I said when he was done. But I think I'll pass. He sounded surprised. Are you sure? The compensation is competitive. I'm sure, I said. My team's already stretched with the Oak Ridge expansion. I'm not looking to chase approval from people who didn't see me until they had to. There was a pause. Then, to his credit, he chuckled. Understood. Well, if you change your mind. I won't, I said and hung up. Kate was sitting on the porch when I stepped outside. She looked up from her book. Everything okay? Yeah, I said. Just someone trying to come around after the fact. She smiled without asking for details. That's what I liked most about her. She didn't need the play-by-play. She just trusted I was making moves for the right reasons. And I was. I used to think the best revenge was proving people wrong. Now I know it's something else entirely. It's living well. It's surrounding yourself with people who see you clearly, oil stains and all, and never once ask you to hide. Mia taught me what it felt like to be invisible. Kate reminded me what it means to be seen. And me? I'm just getting started.